His MAGA hat caused a scandal, and the crowd demanded his expulsion. No one knew he owned the shopping mall. Atlanta's bustling shopping mall on a Saturday afternoon resembled a beehive. Dozens of shoppers hurried about with bags. Children tugged at parents, drawn to window displays where mannequins in festive outfits embraced beneath glimmering tinsel. John, a middle-aged man with a calm demeanor, strolled through the crowd. His red cap with the words, "Make America Great Again," stood out like a beacon in the night. He seemed completely oblivious to the attention it attracted. Amid the hustle and bustle, Karen noticed him. A tall, statuesque woman in a perfectly pressed suit, she was heading toward the food court, but froze when she saw John. Her face, previously serene as a marble statue, twisted with indignation. "What kind of provocation is this?" she muttered under her breath, clutching her purse closer to her as if warding off danger. Karen began following John like a hawk stalking a mouse. Her outrage grew with each passing second. When he stopped by a sneaker display to admire the latest Nike designs, Karen couldn't hold back. She turned and spotted a security guard lazily sipping coffee near the information desk. "Excuse me," she commanded, her tone that of a superior officer. She pointed an accusatory finger at John. "Do you see that man in the red cap? That's offensive. A threat to all of us. You must intervene." Mike, a young guy in his 20s wearing a badge that read trainee, froze mid-sip. He quickly assessed the situation. A determined woman radiating enough energy to topple a display rack, and a man in a hat who looked utterly unfazed. "Ma'am, what exactly is the threat?" Mike asked cautiously, sensing his Saturday shift had just become much more complicated. "Can't you see?" Karen rolled her eyes so dramatically it seemed they might do a full 360-degree rotation. "It's a symbol of aggression and intolerance. Such a person has no right to be in a public place. This is a shopping mall, not a rally." Mike sighed, wishing he had spent his first paycheck on a self-help book titled "Dealing with Difficult Customers" instead of a phone. Succumbing to the pressure, he approached John. John was examining a price tag when the young guard appeared in front of him, looking like someone sent to tame a lion with bare hands. Excuse me, sir," Mike began as politely as possible. "We've received complaints about your, hat. Could you take it off, or maybe leave the mall?" John glanced up at Mike, then at his trembling hands, and smiled faintly. "Complaints?" he repeated, as if the concept itself was surprising. "It's just a hat. I'm not shouting slogans or protesting, just looking at sneakers. Are you saying hats are banned now? Or just my hats?" Mike flushed slightly and stammered. "Well, I'm not sure. But that lady, she seems to think it's inappropriate." John turned his gaze to Karen, who stood a short distance away, watching the scene with the air of a general sending a soldier into battle. John slowly removed his cap, looked at it, then back at Karen, and with a slight smile said, "You know, ma'am, I've always believed everyone has a right to their opinion. But it seems your opinion is a privilege, not a right. I wonder, does this mall have a logic section? I'd buy you a gift." Karen gasped. The crowd around them murmured. People began stopping to watch. "This is outrageous," Karen exclaimed, clutching her purse as if it were a magical shield. "I demand immediate intervention from the management." Mike felt the tension rising. People were pulling out their phones, and someone was already recording. He was certain this video would go viral, but he had no idea what to do next. John, meanwhile, put his hat back on and calmly turned back to the display, clearly enjoying the unfolding drama. "Well," he muttered under his breath, "this is going to be an interesting day." Mike, visibly out of his depth, stood before John like a schoolboy trying to talk a bully out of another prank. The words, "Please leave the mall," still hung in the air, but failed to land. John smiled, a warm yet subtly ironic smile that made Mike's knees wobble. "Sorry, but I don't understand. Complaints about a hat?" John asked, as if it was the funniest thing he'd heard all week. "What's so dangerous about it? It doesn't bite, if that's what you're worried about." The crowd began to inch closer. A few teenagers with phones, an elderly couple whispering to each other, and even employees from nearby stores emerged to see how it would all play out. Karen, realizing her complaint wasn't yielding the desired results, practically exploded. "What are you even talking about?" She stepped forward, waving her smartphone in the air. "That hat is a symbol of oppression, hatred, and ignorance. You're disgracing everyone here." John, still composed, leaned closer to Mike and whispered loud enough for all to hear. "Honestly," he said, "I feel a bit offended by her loud voice. Maybe you could ask her to leave. That's also disturbing my peace." A chuckle rippled through the crowd. Karen spun around, glaring at everyone with a look that said, "What's so funny?" "Are you mocking me?" she asked, staring at John as if he had personally stomped on her flower bed. "I demand this man leave immediately, or I'll file a complaint with the management." Mike felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. John, as if to pour fuel on the fire, added, "Come on, Mike, let's be honest. If anyone here has a reason to complain about discomfort, it's me. When was the last time you were forced to publicly defend a hat?" The crowd buzzed with murmurs. Someone from the back called out, "Leave the guy alone! It's a hat, not a nuclear bomb!" Karen ignored the comment, but could see the situation spiraling out of control. She decided it was time for the ultimate move: drama. "I'm calling the police," she declared, pulling out her phone. "This is a public disturbance, and let everyone see him face the consequences." Her fingers were already dialing when John raised a hand. "Ma'am," he said, his tone that of someone speaking to a petulant child. "Before you call the police, maybe Google freedom of speech. Otherwise, it'll be embarrassing when they show up and take you instead of me." The crowd erupted into laughter. Even Mike couldn't hold back a grin. Karen, red as a tomato, screamed, "This is outrageous! All of you are part of this disgrace. I'm calling the mall manager, and he'll kick you out." John glanced at Mike, who looked like he wanted to disappear. "Looks like I should stick around while she hunts down her manager. Maybe I'll check out your discounts in the meantime. How's that sound?" Mike muttered something unintelligible, unsure of what to say. Karen, her chin held high, was already dialing the mall administrator, confident justice would finally prevail. Meanwhile, someone in the crowd, clearly enjoying the spectacle, shouted, "This day just keeps getting better. Someone bring popcorn." John, hearing the remark, nodded. "Great idea. Who knows, this might go viral." The crowd laughed again, and Karen whipped around, glaring at everyone. Her face reflected absolute determination. The situation had reached a boiling point, and everyone knew the next step would either resolve the conflict or ignite something even bigger. Mike, already under fire from Karen's threatening glares, desperately grabbed his radio. Tom, we need the manager at the main entrance. We've got, a situation," he mumbled, trying to mask the panic in his voice. Within minutes, a man in a business suit with a badge on his lapel rounded the corner. Tall and confident, he walked with the air of someone whose mere presence should resolve any issue. His steps echoed dramatically down the corridor. "What seems to be the problem?" he asked, stopping at the center of the conflict. Karen, sensing victory, sprang forward like a general addressing their troops. "Finally," she exclaimed, nodding toward John. "That man! His hat is a direct challenge to the norms of our society. I demanded he take it off or leave, but he refuses. It's offensive to all of us." The manager carefully observed John, then Karen. His gaze was cold and unreadable, momentarily silencing Karen. The crowd, now encircling them, held its collective breath. Someone whispered, "This is it." John, as calm as ever, raised his hand in a casual greeting. "Good afternoon, Tom. Nice to see you. How's everything going?" Karen furrowed her brow at the familiarity. She noticed a subtle shift in the manager's expression, but couldn't yet piece together what was happening. "Excuse me, you know each other?" she asked, her mind slowly connecting the dots. Tom gave a faint smile and stepped closer to John. "Of course. Allow me to introduce myself. Tom Harper, manager of this shopping mall. And this?" He turned to Karen with a theatrical pause. is Mr. Johnson, the owner of the entire complex. Karen froze as if someone had hit a pause button on her. Her face went pale, then flushed bright red, as though someone had accidentally toggled her emotions from anger to panic. The crowd gasped. People in the back started whispering, and a teenager muttered, "Now that's a plot twist." John, pausing for dramatic effect, removed his hat and gave Karen a slight bow with an ironic smile. "Pleasure to meet you, ma'am. I'm John Johnson. The person you just said was an embarrassment to everyone here." Karen stammered, trying to recover. I didn't know. I'm sorry if... I just wanted to make sure everything was done properly." Tom, sensing her discomfort, couldn't resist adding salt to the wound. "Properly means not judging others by their hats, Ms. Karen. Wouldn't you agree?" The crowd erupted in laughter. Karen opened her mouth as if to reply, but quickly shut it, realizing anything she said would only dig her deeper. John, still smiling, put his hat back on and added, "Well, now that that's settled, I hope we can all enjoy the rest of our day without any unnecessary drama. Though, I must admit, this was quite entertaining. Tom, do you always have such interesting shows here?" Tom chuckled. "Not usually, but I think this will serve as a good lesson for everyone." The crowd broke into applause as Karen, her face red as a beet, stepped back and looked at the phones pointed at her. She knew this video would spread online faster than she could exit the mall. Her final glance before leaving was a mix of anger, embarrassment, and the realization that she'd just experienced the worst day of her life. Karen stood amid the crowd, looking as though she wished the ground would swallow her whole. She knew every second of her words, gestures, and emotions had been captured on camera. The crowd, now silent, watched her with expectant gazes, amplifying her discomfort. I didn't know. Please forgive me," Karen mumbled, crossing her arms. Her voice was soft, but loud enough for the crowd to hear. John looked at her, still calm, without a hint of malice or the desire to humiliate. His expression seemed to say, "You've punished yourself enough." He tilted his head slightly and replied, "No need to apologize, ma'am. It's important to remember that everyone has a right to their opinion and expression, as long as it doesn't break the law. Respect goes both ways, doesn't it?" Karen nodded silently, her face still burning with embarrassment. The crowd applauded, supporting John. "That's how it's done," someone shouted. Karen spun around and headed for the exit at a brisk pace, as though hoping a time machine awaited her outside to erase the last 15 minutes. The crowd parted to let her through, leaving her alone with her discomfort. Mike, who had been standing nearby, silently observing the scene, approached John once Karen had gone. "Sorry about all that, sir. I was just trying to do my job." John patted him on the shoulder. "You did fine, kid. The important thing is to learn. And remember, sometimes the best way to handle conflict is to stand firm and smile. Works more often than you think." Mike smiled, though he still looked a bit overwhelmed. He nodded and returned to his post, relieved this chaotic day was finally behind him. Meanwhile, John turned to the crowd, adjusted his red hat, and with a wink, said, "Now, I think I'll go buy something new. Maybe another hat. Who knows? They might become trendy." The crowd burst into laughter. Even those who had initially eyed him with suspicion now laughed and exchanged approving looks. "Buy two!" someone shouted from the back. "And a matching shirt!" added another. John grinned, waved to the crowd, and headed into the nearest store. People began dispersing, chatting about what had just unfolded. One observer remarked, "You know, I think that guy just gave everyone here a masterclass in dignity." By then, videos of the incident were already circulating on social media. Soon the internet would be flooded with clips titled, "Karen vs. Mall Owner, Who Won, and How to Stay Calm Under Fire." As John continued his day, basking in the freedom he so valued, he chuckled to himself. "I should visit malls more often. Never a dull moment."